There's growing worry over the dangers toxic chemicals could pose in East Palestine, Ohio, after a freight trail derailed in the town early this month. Some residents say they've suffered headaches, rashes, sore throats, and other symptoms. And I am joined now by Heather McTeer Toney, Vice President of Community Engagement for the Environmental Defense Fund. Heather, thank you so much for joining us. I see that we got the memo and we're all wearing blue today. What is your biggest concern right now for people in this area, especially those who are complaining of symptoms?
You know, East Palestine is like so many communities all around this country that are connected by railway. And it's so concerning that not only are we dealing again with another tragedy of a train derailment, it's in community where there are children, their families, and that people are very concerned about what they're smelling, they're seeing, they're feeling, and how we're measuring and monitoring that exposure is extremely important. So when we think about the chemicals that we know have been released, they are known carcinogens. Vinyl chloride is a carcinogen. And when it's burned, you get phosgene, which again is something that is not only a known carcinogen, but we have to look at the health impacts to our vulnerable populations. And that's what worries me. It is looking at the impacts to children, to elderly, to our pregnant women, and women of childbearing age. We should definitely closely monitor not only their health impacts, but really look to see what the exposure was and how many of those persons were actually exposed.
You know, sometimes when things like this happen, and I'm not saying that's what's happening this time, but sometimes companies or the government or someone tries to sweep it under the rug because they know that there could be long-term impacts, and that is costly. What kind of work do you think will need to be done in this particular time to, one, alleviate the fears and worries of those who saw this happen, who experienced this happening, and who have to live with this in their community, and two, to actually do the cleanup to make sure that everything is actually safe?
Communicating with community and understanding that this is something that we're all connected to is a critical component of this. In St. James, Louisiana, in just a few months ago in November, there was a train derailment where, again, there was another entire community that had to be evacuated. But how many of us really understood and knew that what happened in St. James, Louisiana was going to happen again here in East Palestine, and that we would continue to see these type of incidents because we don't know what's going through the trains that are coming through our community. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us to understand that this is a connector. This is an environmental community connector. Every community deserves to know what's coming through there. And let's be honest, when you're out with your kids and you're going like the folks in East Palestine to support the East Palestine Bulldogs, you want to know that they're breathing the air that is clean for them. You want to know if there's an emergency, if the Waffle House closes, that there's a real emergency. That's how people in communities think about how to determine whether or not there's a health hazard. So when we take those real life connections and now look at what people are feeling, what they're smelling, what they're seeing, I think it's extremely important that not only the corporations and the corporations and government take note, but that we all listen to community first and then respond to what they're telling us they're living through the experience. We can't let the corporations off the hook.
Yeah, Heather Toney, I do want to mention I have had several conversations with the EPA director, Michael Regan. And one of the things he said, and I thought it was important, is that they are going to have to earn back, and I'm talking about the government itself and the companies, earn back the trust of people because at this point in time, that trust has been lost. And it takes time to rebuild that. And so all of the things that you said, ring true for a lot of people who have been through this before. Heather Toney, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your insights with us.
Thanks so much.